Welcome back to Drum Electric. So, we are looking at a new software on this channel. It's not new software in general, but it's not one that I've really touched upon yet, and that is QLab. Now, QLab, if you don't know what it is a really nice halfway house between Mainstage and Ableton. It's what a lot of people use for live shows and their backing track rigs, and you can also do some really cool stuff like sync videos on projectors behind you on stage and lighting cues and stuff like that. So you're getting this huge bundle of joy that you can do with Ableton in a really simple software called QLab. They use it a lot in musical theatre and that sort of side of the music industry, but a lot of people use it live as well. So in this video, we are going to be looking at how you can run video cues on a projector at the same time as your backing track. So what I'll do is I'll take you through the backing tracks that I'm using and how I've exported them, how I've created just a little demo video, how I put that all into QLab, and then what it looks like at the end and how you can use it in your live show. So let's get into it. I'm going to show you the backing tracks that I'm using and how they work. So whilst this project is loading up, I'm going to be just using some AirPods for this because you don't need anything fancy. You're not on stage listening to it. I just need to hear what's going on. It's always really nice when you put in AirPods and they're on transparency mode straight away. It's not so nice when it just blocks out the whole world and it's kind of like, oh. Okay, as you can see, I've got my stems project up. I've got my AirPods in so I can hear the stems. Let's break it down quick. So this project has got the stems in. I know they're not actually called stems, they're called something else. There's a great video that Ash Zone put out on his Instagram of why they're not called stems. Check it out. Anyway, I've got the individual tracks, the multi-tracks. I remembered. So these are the multi-tracks of a track that I got from Epidemic Sound just for royalty purposes. Normally I do this with actual songs from a band, but I don't want copyright things to happen. Anyway, so as you can see on my Logic screen, I've got a click track up the top and then I've got the individual multi-tracks. So to create the click track is super easy. All I've done is I've linked up all of these stems to the click in Logic. I've then made an instrument track. It's, I think, just the orchestral percussion thing. Basically choose whatever sound you want. And then I've just synced up the noise I want to the click. In this case, it's an 8th note click with the woodblock sound. It's just what I prefer, but again, you can use whatever you want, and this is what it sounds like. Nice and easy, and that goes through the whole track, and because I've synced it with Logic's click, it just means that I have to do one bar of that, so I just write in 8 notes in this case of MIDI, and then I can loop it for the rest of the project, as you can see here, where it's slightly in grey. Now, as you can see, I've got two things muted. Now, if you've never used Epidemic Sound, that's all good. Basically, when you download stuff, you've got one track that has the whole mix and then 3 individual instruments. I've muted the drums because obviously I'm going to be playing them. So what you can hear is the bass and the rest of the instruments. It's really easy. For you, you might have loads of different instruments, and it might be a case of muting the ones that you've got live and then keeping like the synth parts that you haven't got enough hands for, or the weird percussive parts that float around. Totally up to you. But this is what this one sounds like. That's the stems. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to export 2 different versions. So the first one is going to be all of it. So I'm going to include the drums. I am going to include the click for this one because I'll show in a minute why, but I want to keep the click in there, especially because I've got 2 bars of just click. So I'm going to unmute the drums, hit on this little bounce button in the corner here, bring across this, export it with these settings, so it's a WAV, 24-bit, 44.1, yada yada yada. Hit OK, choose your folder where you want to export it to, and then hit bounce, and you're good to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to export it with just the instrument. So I'm going to mute the click, and I'm going to mute the drums, because this is now the track that's going to be sent to front of house, or in this case to you guys on the video, and that's what I'm going to do, because I'm going to split it so the front of house will get one track that has all of the instruments, and the other one with just click, which is just going to the band. So I'm going to export that with exactly the same settings, and then finally I'm going to export one with just click. So I'm going to mute that, unmute that, and now I've just got the click track. Exactly the same settings. You know the drill. So that's the backing track. Super simple. You'll customize it to what you want. This is what I'm using. And now I have 3 different exports. One with all of it, including click, including drums, everything. The other one with just what I'm sending to front of house, so no click and no drums. And then finally one that's just click. And here's what we're going to do. Let's hop into, in this case, Premiere Pro, and I'll show you how I've created the video that we're going to project, in this case, on that back wall there where the guitar and the bass are. Alright, welcome into Premiere Pro. You don't have to use Premiere Pro, it's just what I use, it's what I'm comfortable with. I've used it for years. You can use whatever you want. So, this is a really simple video. It's just for demo purposes for this, so you can practice it and see what I'm doing. But again, like the multi-tracks and stems and things like that, you'll probably have your own custom ones that are for a band or a project that you're working with. So, use this and customize it to yourself. So what I've done is I've just timed these colourful squares to different elements of the audio, mostly towards the drums because that's the most obvious thing, and sometimes towards different fills that are happening and different rhythms, basically. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things. I'll hit play so you can see what I've created. Again, super simple. This is what it looks like. And so on. That's kind of where I got to. Normally you would have the full song for a show, but again, we don't need to do the full however long this is. We can only do a 42-second snippet because that's fine. Okay, couple of things before we go into exporting stuff. It's really simple. As you can see, this first section here, thanks Premiere Pro, sounds great, is all in time with the beat. Super simple. I've just timed that with the click, which is why we've kept it in there for this one, and the drums, which is why we've exported it with click and drums. I thought of that one all on my own. So after that, it's again keeping in time, but this time the colors just change color. Super simple. Most of it's in time up until you get to this section here, where I followed that 16th note, essentially pattern. Super simple. Just taking a really obvious rhythm that's happening in the song and then recreating it. Now this next section, the big color squares you can see in green here, it just fades out. Now if you're doing something for an actual band, this could be a big title of the band's name behind you that could fade out, or something like that, or just something more fancy. It's just another thing that you can do. And then again, this next section is just following the unison hits of the band. Nice and simple. It creates something a bit different than just following the tempo of the whole thing for the whole time, and it makes it just a little bit more flashy and fun, especially if you're running lighting cues from this, which we'll get to in another video. But it starts to adapt with the stage. Apart from that, that's the whole video. It's super simple. Now what you want to do to export this is just export it as an MP4. You don't need the audio because we've already exported that, so you can just do the video. If you're using Premiere Pro, I'm using this on a Mac, so I can go Command M to hit export. I should get this window up. And then all I'm going to do is tick export video, and then usually export audio is there too, but I don't need that, so I can just untick that. Feel free to mess with any of the other settings, but the only one that I'd recommend is render at maximum depth, so it's got the most depth, and then changing where it exports to by clicking on that name there. Apart from that, then you can just hit export, and we're good to go. Let's hop into QLab and I'll show you how you can set all of this up to work at the same time. Welcome into QLab. If you've never seen it before, it's actually a really nice piece of software. Sometimes when you open stuff like Logic or Ableton for the first time, it's really aggressive to the face. It just doesn't look pleasant, and it's kind of complicated, whereas QLab, it's kind of like a bunch of really big buttons, and it's just nice, you know? So thanks, guys who created QLab. You've done well. You can tell I'm a drummer, can't you? Anyway, this is QLab. Now, there's kind of three main sections to this, and I won't get into QLab too much in this video, but this is sort of the gist. So on the right here, you've got your cue list, and that just basically shows you a big old long list of what's coming up next. You've got your play, stop, pause, go back button, you know. On the left here, you've got all of the individual bits where we'll drag and drop our stuff into. So this is where your backing tracks are going to go, your video tracks, and where you can group them all. You've got the big go button up here, which you'd think you'd hit the play button, but no. You need to hit the go button to go. And then at the bottom here, as you can see, is your cue selection, so you can kind of go in a little bit more in terms of, does the audio file loop? Do you want it to stop? Do you want it to continue through? That sort of stuff. That's sort of the general gist of it. It does go further in depth, and we will look at that in future videos, but for now, that's kind of what we're looking at. So what we want to do is start dragging and dropping in the different files. So that'll be our audio files and our video files. So do you remember when we were exporting the backing track? You exported three things: the track with click and drums, just the click, and then just the track. We're going to use just the click and just the track. So I'm going to drag in my click just to there it is. Drag in my track, there it is. And then finally, drag in my video, there it is. Now there's an X here. I'll get to that in a second and show you what that means. Now if I just click on, well, the click, and hit go, it's coming through. Nothing happens. So we've just got click, and as you can see, it's only the click playing. So if I hit go again, it then starts the track. That's for a guess. That was pretty good, wasn't it? If you click the stop button, I tend to double click just to be sure, but everything then stops. So in order to get these both going at the same time, what we want to do is, if you look in the bottom left down here, we've got loads of different options to work with our different samples and things we've got there. So we've got basics, triggers, time and loops, audio levels, yada yada yada. We don't need the rest of it, we just need basics. So if you can't see this, make sure you select the track, hit basics at the bottom here, and you'll see this. So what we want is this continue down here. Now, it's probably on do not continue, and that's what mine is on now. If you click that, you get three options. You've got auto continue and auto follow. Auto continue means the track underneath it will play at the same time when you hit go. Whereas auto follow means as soon as that first track is done, it's automatically going to play the next one. You don't have to hit go, because what normally happens is you hit go, gets to the end of the track, and then it stops, and you have to hit go again. So if I hit go now, with it on auto continue, both start at the same time. Now the last thing is what we want to do is make sure the video goes at the same time as well, because obviously that's going to be cued on a big old projector, hopefully on stage or on screens, you know the drill. So to see the video and why it's got this X here, basically you can go down to the bottom right, see the warnings. A cue in the list is broken, which is our video track. There is a problem with this cue's video surface. So basically it means it can see that it's a video, but it's got nothing to show you on. So if you head up to window, an audition window, this thing pops up, and this is your audition window, and this is what will be seen on a projector on the screen, but it just basically means that we don't have to plug it in, we don't have to plug in a spare monitor, we can do it all in QLab. And now as you can see, that little X has gone, and our go button goes to audition, because we're auditioning this, we're seeing how it goes. So now that we can see our video on the audition thing, now we want to get it to play at exactly the same time as all of our other tracks, so the click and the track. Now I'm just going to move the audition window out of the way for a second, but what we want to do is click on track, go all the way down to continue like we did with the click, and then make sure it's on auto continue. And that way, when we hit audition at the top left, or go when we're connected to a projector, which we'll get to, it'll all play at the same time. So I need to make sure I'm clicked on the click, which is the first track, because that's where we're triggering it all from. I'm going to bring back the audition window so we can see it. I'm now going to hit spacebar, which will set it all off, and hopefully, there you go, all three going at the same time. Let's see what it looks like. Cool. So with your shows and stuff like that, you can obviously adjust accordingly, but we've now got 3 tracks triggered. Now, if we want to make this a little bit neater, what we can do is just highlight all of these and then hit the group button. So now, rather than having to hit click and hope that it follows along, it basically goes, here's a group of stuff. That's my first cue, hence the cue button there. I'm just double clicking to name it as first track. There we go. So then when we have more tracks underneath, it'll just go straight on, rather than when we hit go, it'll then trigger off just the track and the video. And we don't want that when we're playing live. We want it to go for the first track, all 3, and then to the next song and next song. So that just makes it a little bit easier. So now I can just grab my audition window, hit spacebar, and it does all of those, and then it's ready for the next track. Cool. I also like how if you hover over this stop button, it's called the panic all. I respect that. So now we've got the QLab project set up, it's ready to go, and the exciting bit now is setting it up with the projector and playing along and making sure that all of the outputs are going to the right place. So sending click to just the band, sending the track to the front of house, and then sending the video to the projector. So I'm going to move that guitar and bass, start projecting onto that back wall and hoping that I can get a video angle that's dark enough, and then I'll see you there. Okay, so before we get into this next section, I'm just going to very briefly apologise for not only the background noise, the visual noise, and the darkness of this video. I'm kind of like a floating head and a little bit of a goose going on here. Mainly so you can see, obviously, the projector behind me, and then obviously the second camera so you can see it a bit more clearly. That noise you can hear, audio-wise, is the projector. It's a really cheap one from, I honestly don't know where, super cheap. I'm pretty sure it was like 20 quid, if that. So obviously it's really loud, but it does the job for this. Obviously I'm not going to bring it on a gig with me. I'm going to have proper projectors, but for demo purposes, we're all good. Okay, I'll show you how this works. So all I've done is I've plugged in, as you can see behind me, the projector into the HDMI output on my Mac, as if I was plugging in, well, a projector or a monitor or anything like that. Once that's there, and once you've got a connection, make sure it's set as an extended display, not a mirror. It just makes it a little bit easier, and plus when you're working in quite a big stage, you don't obviously then have everything you're doing on screen projected onto the projector, because once you're plugged in, obviously this is what it looks like whilst you're working in QLab. So once it's plugged in, then we're going to head down to the bottom right on QLab and hit this little settings thing. Now there's 2 things we want to do on here. The first is, as you can see, head to audio on the left and make sure that we've got our output selected. So on audio patch 2, I've got the Scarlett 8920 because that's what I'm using. And then audio patch 3 is obviously the same thing because that's how I'm going to route my click and my tracks to 2 different outputs. You can then edit those here. I'm not going to do that right now, but feel free to mess with that. The other thing you want to do is head into video. Now this is where your surface will be detected. So in this case, because the projector is connected, it's seen that as surface 1. I can rename that as projector, but I'm not going to right now, and it's right there. Obviously, if it's not there, you can add a new empty surface, a multi-screen display surface, which means you have multiple screens. You'll probably just need an empty surface for this, and it usually connects to it. If you're connected to it and getting a picture on it from your computer anyway, you should be good to go. Once that's there, then we need to start faffing with our output. So click needs to be in patch number 2, because that's where we set it. And then the track needs to be in patch number 3. And you can do that with the audio levels there and just clicking on each individual track. And then finally, the video obviously needs to be on the projector. So when you click on that track, if you head to display and geometry, which makes you sound super fancy, you can head into video surface, and that's where it'll be projected on. So you can, in this case, I've only got one connected, so I'm just going to be connected to the projector. But if you had multiples, or say you're going from your Mac to a screen to demo it, and then also a projector, just making sure it's in the right place. So that's there, and obviously as you can see, nothing's changed behind me. I can still see my desktop, and that will change when I hit go. So in theory, when I hit go, that will go black and start projecting my video. So let's see what happens. Go. Nice. 3, 4. Cool. So it works, but there's a delay. And now, because I'm not going through AirPods, I'm going through my audio interface where I've got my in-ears in and I can hear it properly. I'm now going to take off that pre-weight. And hopefully that'll fix this problem. So let's try it again. Those first 2 bars of click are just... It's just terrifying. It's really intense. Is it going to be a time? Pretty much. So there's a minor delay, but it's not something that I'm going to faff with now. Obviously, you can use the pre-weight function on there to start messing with it and seeing if you can get that pre-weight going and that they're all dead in time, but that's close enough for me. So the next part is just the fun bit of playing along. So let's see what happens. Alright, okay. I think that works quite well, but the one problem is at the end, it does that, so it goes back onto my desktop, and I'm realising as I'm playing, the projector is slowly moving, which is quite funny. So in order to fix that, what we basically want it to do is to hold on that black screen rather than going to my desktop. So to do that, we're going to head back into QLab. If you hit the video file, and then go to time and loops, in the bottom right, there's this really small option that's saying, hold at end. If you tick that, it'll just hold the final frame, which is, in this case, the black screen. So let's give that one more try and see if we can get that black screen to hold at the end. And that is that. That's how we work with projectors. That's how we set them up for shows. Obviously, this is a very minimal setup in that sense, but this is how you start to explore this sort of thing moving forward into bigger shows where you've got multiple screens. And you can also do some really cool stuff where you can have cameras plugged into, like, the Blackmagic A10 Mini, or the capture cards that I've done how to live stream drums on. And you can connect them all, so once the video's done, it goes to a camera angle, and it's just really cool. So that's all to come in drum electric videos. Again, I apologise for the various amounts of noise in this video, but it works, and it's a great way to test out how to project stuff. So, as always, if you have any experience or different opinions on this, or even different methods of doing this, please lob it in the comment section down below, because I'd love to hear about it and potentially learn something myself. So that would be really cool. Or if you try this out for yourself, please don't forget to tag me on Instagram, because I'd love to see what you guys come up with. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for all of our shiny new videos, and I'll see you in the next one.